This and every Wednesday, Tobago Talks, and when Tobago Talk, we listen. Martin George joins us this morning. He's wearing the cap as the Tobago Business Chamber President, and we welcome Mr. George because a very important development in Tobago next Tuesday. We all wait with bated breath to see what direction, what's the mandate, as it were, with this new political party in the mix. It says simply, join us as we prepare to launch our political party Tuesday, 4th April 2023 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm watching there's a different color. Of course, Farley at the head. Mr. George, good morning. As always, great to see you, and thanks for the time.
So, well, you see now, Jason, I guess because of your media experience, you picked up on the color, because I didn't know that that is supposed to represent their color.
Yeah, that must be the color, because I'm thinking that will not be, you know, that is subliminal, that is intentional, that is not by chance. Right. So I suspect it looks like a burnt orange to me. Is it orange to you?
Right, yes, it looks like an orange, yes. It looks like an orange, yes. So, okay, so it will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So the thing is, Jason, what we have is a scenario where when these persons declared themselves as independent, it was reminiscent of the children's story where, you know, they say the emperor has no clothes. Mm-hmm. So as much as they tried to portray themselves as still representative of the people of Tobago and doing the people's business, the question was, who are you? What do you represent? What is your philosophy? What are your principles, practices, procedures? What is your guiding philosophy? What is your manifesto? And those were things they could not answer, because if you are 13 or 14 independents, then basically it's each man for himself and God for all. So therefore, that's why they have been compelled. And I had said quite some time ago that there will be a moral and ethical imperative for them to coalesce and form themselves into some party or some recognizable unit. Because the reality is that politics in Trinidad and Tobago is party-based. And in fact, they campaigned with a party, they got into office riding on the back of a political party. So therefore, they really cannot now continue for the rest of the 4 years as independents. And I think the time has come, and they have recognized this, and they have therefore decided, well, look, we have to, you know, launch ourselves and, you know, let the public identify us now as a separate political entity. I guess maybe as far removed as they possibly could from the former PDP.
Let me ask you, because you said it correctly. Obviously, to get into the corridors of governance, the vehicle must be a political party. And of course, the vehicle used by Farley and others would have been the PDP vehicle. Clearly, something went wrong with that said vehicle, and they abandoned that particular cause. Now they're stepping into their own, with their own new vehicle. It's now gone from a black vehicle to clearly a burnt orange. Would this bring stability to the Tobago space with this launch and with this, as you said, declaration of their mandate and manifesto and philosophy on Tuesday?
Well, it will actually create a very interesting dynamic, because what you will have, Jason, is a scenario where Mr. Duke has his party, he has his base, he has persons who still follow him, despite all his antics in the public space. He does have persons who are still loyal to him. He does have persons who are still PDP followers. So he has a base. You now have this new vehicle, this new party with Mr. Augustine and his followers. But the point is, who are their supporters? Because as we speak now, there's not a single person who could identify as a supporter of that party, because you don't even know the party. You don't know the name, you don't know the symbol, you don't know the philosophy, you don't know the manifesto, you don't know what policies they will come in with, you know, the constitution, nothing is known about it. So the challenge that Mr. Augustine and the other independents, I could still call them that for now, have the challenge that they have is that they will now have to go out and do the groundwork. They will have to basically pound the pavement to do what Mr. Duke did when he was building his party. He went from house to house, knocking on doors with his bullhorn. I mean, looking like a madman at times, because sometimes it was him alone. But the point is that groundwork needs to be done, because that's where you are now going to win over your new supporters. Because basically, this is something being thrust upon the public midstream. You came in wearing one set of robes, you disrobed yourself, and you stood there as the emperor with no clothes, and then you recognize, well, look, I can't stay like this forever, so you get a new robe, but nobody knows anything about this new entity, this new vehicle, this new philosophy, and the challenge, and they are going to be faced with Hobson's choice in terms of how do they differentiate themselves from the PDP in terms of your policies, your manifesto, your ideas.
Well, let me suggest that differentiation can come with the resources that's now at Mr. Farley's disposal, because under his new party, whatever that party will be called, if he, within the next couple of years, is able to cater to the needs of the Tobagonian through his office, and by extension, his party, which he will obviously promote in the political guile when it comes to that particular moment, he will have a definite advantage compared to Mr. Duke's PDP. And I'm thinking now, because of Tobago's population and the fact that the voter turnout in itself, the last time around in a couple of years, looking at the numbers, it's not anything to celebrate. The numbers are extremely low. And there are other political entities in the Tobago space. We have Ms. Soifat and others. We have, who's the guy? I can't remember the guys right now.
Kelvin Morris.
Right.
Kelvin Morris.
Right. So there's so much going on. I wonder if the vote in itself will be split, and this might give the incumbent or others a chance to, I mean, I think it's really anybody's game at this point in time. But then again, as I would have mentioned at the start, Mr. Farley might have the advantage based on his resources.
I actually think that there can be, if it is that an election is called within the near future, I think that it can actually present some sort of opportunity for a revival of the fortunes of the PNM, because the PDP and this new party that Mr. Augustine is forming, they will be basically competing for the same pool of votes. In other words, the non-PNM supporters. It's going to be the same pool of votes that they are campaigning for. And in fact, the majority of them would have been former PDP supporters, So in other words, Mr. Augustine has to now win them over from their PDP roots. Mr. Duke now has to form a team around him, because Farley has the team, but Duke has the party. So Duke needs to get a team, Farley needs to get a party. Basically, so Duke needs to get a credible team around him. He needs to stop being a clown in the public space. And I make no apologies for saying so, because you can't be serious about trying to convince Tobagonians that you are, focused on their business, and you all over the place. 1 minute, you want to compete for mayor of Port of Spain. Does Mr. Duke even begin to understand or fathom how the mayor of Port of Spain is chosen? What rubbish is he talking about? He wants to become mayor of Port of Spain. You have no political base there. You have no votes. You are not in power to be able to appoint, anybody in as mayor of Port of Spain. So what rubbish are you telling us? Then next thing, he's fighting war for HDC residents in Trinidad. Tobagonians are looking on at these things, and they are wondering, well, where is your focus?
And I think even
he's
more
launching a party in Trinidad.
And I think even more so, I mean, in terms of Mr. Duke, and again, it speaks, I think, not so much to Mr. Duke, but to our political consciousness. The fact that his name came up in a sex lies and videotape scandal. Now, granted, it came up in the midst of Carnival when we were all into the hard fete and Carnival come home. So I wonder if because of that, it kind of passed under the radar. But I did not see anyone really calling in a serious way for Mr. Duke to step back. As a matter of fact, he came out even more guns blazing. He's a man that seems to be willing to die with his boots on.
He thrives on controversy. He thrives on controversy. That's his forte. That's his area of strength. He loves the drama and the bacchanal, and of course he's a publicity junkie. You know, so the more that occurs, the more he loves it. You know, it's like one of those persons who gets intoxicated by the sound of their own voice. So the more they talk, the more drunken they get, you know, by listening to their own voice. So, yeah, he loves that type of scenario, and it works well for him to a certain extent. He has to recognize that at some point, Tobagonians are going to start asking serious questions, hard questions, and focused questions. And if he's not able to deliver the answers, then he runs the risk of being consigned to the dust heap of the political graveyard. So he needs to get himself together, clean up his act, and start showing Tobagonians he's serious and focused about Tobago's business. Because now with Farley launching his party, this is a direct and frontal assault upon the PDP, you know, because they are going to show, hey, listen, you should be aligning yourself with us as opposed to the PDP. In other words, don't go with the PDP, come with us. So therefore, if Mr. Duke is serious about his political future, he needs to, you know, really start, you know, focusing on that and getting himself in order in that regard. And as I say, the PNM is, you know, just loving this. They are relishing this. They are licking their chops and they are just waiting. You know, Mr. Kelvin Morris is probably beaming from ear to ear at these developments. So also is Mr. Ansel Dennis, because they can only see good things for the PNM arising out of any political dogfight between Mr. Farley Augustine's new party and Mr. Duke's PDP.
Let me ask you, where does all of this settle with the business community in Tobago? Because obviously, you know, business is business. Regardless who is steering the wheel, business must be conducted, business must go on. People take Tobago very serious when it comes to your tourism product and everything that surrounds Tobago in that regard. With your conversations with fellow entrepreneurs and people in business, what's happening there?
The reality is that none of this is good for business. Once you have political instability anywhere, and it's not just Tobago, anywhere around the world, look at Israel now. Israel is, I mean, on the verge of a conflagration, you know, because of the, you know, ideas that Netanyahu has that, you know, he must be the sole and supreme authority and he must control everything. And if he doesn't like things, then, you know, he will destroy them until he has absolute control. Now he wants to control the judiciary, he wants to change the constitution, if you understand me, and the place is in a turmoil. That's never good for business in any scenario. I mean, thankfully, we in Trinidad and Tobago, we are very peace-loving, and, you know, we like old talk and humor, rumor, and bacchanal and mobilang, you know, rather than going out and marching and rioting in the streets, you know, like some other countries. And I think in a way that's a blessing for us because, I mean, regardless of how politically polarized we are, we never reach to that level of, you know, physical, you know, violence in the streets or anything of the sort. But the fact of the matter is, from a business perspective, it's never good because once you have this type of scenario occurring, you do have and you will have a slowdown in business activity. You will have the Mr. Augustine and his new party. They are now focused on, okay, what they can do to show up their political stocks, you know, as opposed to maybe seeing about, you know, ensuring that payments are made to persons who have outstanding bills, contractors, service personnel, etc. Those things may not be a priority anymore. You know, then they also have to now think in terms of the planning for the budget coming up ahead. So then they may think, well, look, okay, we have to hold back monies. We can't spend as freely in the economy. You know, so there are lots of considerations here. And as I say, none of it is good for business from this political instability standpoint.
You know, I wonder where the financing is coming from for this launch on Tuesday.
I think we will have to follow a trail of breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel. And I think once we follow those breadcrumbs, we eventually come to the source, because it always reveals itself one way or the other. One way or the other. So we will see in time where it comes from.
Mr. George, any closing remarks as we wrap things up on this Wednesday?
No, well, I would just like to wish Trinidad and Tobago a happy, holy, and peaceful Easter. I would like to wish all the SEA students the very best of luck. And I would also like to wish the parents and your guardians of these children that you are calm and that you are accepting, that you will accept whatever the results are, and ensure that your child's future is not just hinged on a purely limited perspective of thinking of it of academics only. The world is changing around us as we speak. You have things like ChatGPT, you have Microsoft Copilot, you have, I saw a new one this morning, which basically writes out a whole essay for you. So we as, the elders, we as the seniors, we as the parents, we as the guardians, we need to understand the world is changing at a faster pace than we can even imagine. So you saw even the CEO of TSTT telling the parents, not just to be focused on the academic studies. You must also focus on the tech side of things, focus on even the arts and crafts, the skills, because in developed countries, Jason, as a fact, a plumber could earn as much as a doctor or an engineer, right? Yeah. A mason could be earning as much as a banker, because they recognize these things as skills that are needed for the society. And we have to start changing our thinking in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think once we do so, it's going to be a lot easier for parents to understand that there are many more opportunities out there for persons. Yesterday we had someone who I was giving some legal advice, and this person has a master's in human resource development, and she also has a hairdressing business. And she told me she makes way more money in her hairdressing business than she does with her master's qualification. And I told her, I said, I'm not surprised.
Interesting.
That's the reality of the world today.
Yeah, changing world, ever-changing world. Martin George, thank you.
It's changing, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We'll touch base soon, I'm sure.
Like nail techs, nail technicians, they make lots of money. Barbers, you have the opportunity to. So let's not limit ourselves to thinking only of the traditional areas of study. And let's not confine our children, because not everyone is skilled or gifted the same way. Someone who may not be academically, capable might be the best possible barber or the best possible hairdresser, and they could be earning much more money than the person who, is only into academics. So we as parents, we must always understand that and try to develop what our children have a natural tendency for, the natural skill, and whatever natural talent they have, and hone and develop that in them.
Indeed, well said, Martin. Thank you so much for the perspective, and we'll touch base soon. Let's see how things pan out in Tobago next week.
Yes,
all the best.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always. Martin George touching base with us, President of the Tobago Business Chamber. We get ready for the NGC Children's Bocas Lit Fest. The storytelling caravan is around the corner. Full details after the break.